Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
This is Dr. Peter Lilback, president of the Providence Forum. I'm so glad to be with Dr. Sky and the Dr. Sky Show. Make sure you listen in because this is one of the places you're going to remember the great truths of the lost voice of freedom that are rediscovered when we go back to our founding fathers and the great principles they've given to us.
Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. A quote from the first president and founder of the United States and the Republic of which we are, President George Washington. 31 minutes after the hour, we continue with our very special guest, Andy Ross, patriot, public speaker, musical talent, as you've heard a snippet, chasing the American dream and talking about why the American dream still works. Andy, I'm trying to get as many callers in here, and then I want to jump into some of your Second Amendment involvement supporting that big part of the Bill of Rights. Let's say good morning on line number 3 to Nick in Virginia. You've been patient. How are you this morning? Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Sky and Mr. Ross. We all grew up with our right hand on our hearts, reciting that daily reminder of our American exceptionalism. Today, we're under a lot of pressure, and our freedoms are under fire by a lot of our elected officials who don't even pledge allegiance to America. Some even pledge allegiance to other countries. Yes. And I would like for our oath that we take in office in those high positions to include maybe a rejection of socialism, communism, and Sharia law, which are now becoming visible in parts of our country, and it's very much concerns me. I'm sure it does you too.
Yes, Nick, you bring up some very powerful things here. Again, Andy, this gets into a whole different conversation. I wanted to steer it that way directly because what's wrong with having the Constitution talked about and taught? What's wrong about having us believe that we're not just a democratic organization, a democracy? We hear it so much. We're a constitutional republic. Your response to Nick in Virginia, please.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. Again, you've got so many people that work so hard and go through unbelievable obstacles to be here, to come to this country because they know how great it is, and then they get to this country and don't want to celebrate or honor or respect the traditions, values, and everything it took to make this country what it is today. It's hard to figure out why anyone would fight tooth and nail to be here, come here legally, and then get here and not just want to embrace every single tradition and value that this great country has. I just spent a little bit of time up on Capitol Hill last week and walked by the congressmen and the House representatives' offices and saw names on doors and just kind of reflected on what I've heard their speeches on, what I've heard them talk about, and kind of where their values lie. And it's interesting. You think that the point, if it was 1 out of 100, you might say to yourself, there's just some people that just don't get it. But it's not 1 out of 100. Unfortunately, it's a number that is concerning. And
it sure is.
I just hope leadership can steer us, make sure and steer us back on track. But it starts with the vote, right? I mean, they're voted in, and someone is voting for them. And I think even educate yourself on the people that you're voting for. It starts there.
You're right, Nick in Virginia. Very prolific points here about allegiance to America, especially. It should be for everyone, but obviously to those that are into elected officials, that become elected officials. Thank you, Nick in Virginia. What I want to talk about here is your involvement with the Second Amendment, so important to me, even though people don't hear this from this particular show, maybe only, and if only, ever so often when we talk about American exceptionalism. You have a business involved around this, and share it with people, because I think it's important for them to know why you believe in the Second Amendment and the things that you offer.
When I started writing music, as we talked about, I wrote a bunch of hunting songs because I had the show. And producer Doug Grau said to me, he said, Andy, if we're going to make an album, we can't just make an album of hunting songs. There's got to be something else you're passionate about. What else are, so I love the shooting sports. The hunting I do is archery, but I love the shooting sports. I love to train. I'm pro Second Amendment, pro Constitution, and this kind of country patriotic rock and roll kind of sound and songs that I started coming out of me. And one song in particular, American Rebel, landed me on, is off my Time to Fight record in 2015, landed me on Counting Cars. Danny from Counting Cars is like,
love that show.
And he said, let's build you a car around your music. And he built me what became the Second Amendment muscle car. It's kind of the Batmobile of the Second Amendment. It's been on display at many NRA shows and many SHOT shows and around the country. And it was one of their best episodes, best build, best paint, reruns all the time. And because of being on Counting Cars and because of the Second Amendment muscle car and the music, that's where people started calling upon me to be involved in events that surround themselves around the Second Amendment, or maybe even having conversations about the Second Amendment. And, I live, I have a high-rise downtown Nashville, and I always, tell people, I said, down the street, just underneath my building, down here, right, block or two off Broadway, there's a bank. And that bank has an armed security guard in that bank. Mm-hmm. And I understand that because there's a lot of money in that bank, and mm-hmm. 2 doors, 3 doors, 4 doors down, there's a jewelry store, and there's an armed security guard in that jewelry store. And I understand that because there's a lot of diamonds and value in that store. But you know what? I've got friends that have farms. I've got friends that have homes, that have families, that have tractors, that have family heirlooms. And I would argue that their belongings are as valuable to them as the inventory in that jewelry store.
You're right.
And why could they be able to protect their valuables or surrounding or family and store, but yet someone, any other citizen can't protect what's dear to them?
You're absolutely right. I don't want to be on a soapbox here, Andy, but I've been teaching concealed carry here for about 35 years to everybody, a legal age, of course, non-criminal background. But the interesting thing is, if people look at specifically a Supreme Court decision that came down years ago, not too many, it was Bruin versus the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, where, of course, if we look deeper into this, and this is not a show about the Supreme Court, but it basically reaffirmed that it was unconstitutional for the people in the New York area to deny the individuals from getting concealed carry permits like we teach here. And look, we still have crime out here in Arizona. But what I'm trying to say is, if you don't know what rights you have, how do you know what rights you're going to lose? So that's a whole nother subject. But tell us briefly some of the products that you offer, because this is interesting, because every shooter needs proper holsters, they need safes, they need all kinds of things. What do you offer? And I'd like to hear that.
Well, real quick, the Second Amendment defends all the other amendments. As gun owners, in this country, just the citizens of this country make up one of the biggest armies in the on the planet. And I think that's one of the reasons that we remain a free country. But yes, back to when I had that song out, American Rebel, and we decided to turn it into a brand, the song became the mission statement for the company. This was back in 2015. our first product offering was concealed carry clothing, backpacks, coats, jackets. We moved into gun safes.
Great.
And then we
Nice.
had the good opportunity to buy out our OEM manufacturer, and which was Champion Safe. So we're very proud to be, involved in the 2A business.
Sounds great. And if you're a firearm owner within the sound of my voice, far and wide, and you're still legally allowed to have this, these particular tools to defend yourself and your families, obviously the proper safe security and the things that our good special guest is talking about, Andy Ross. Let's continue with the phone calls. Line number 4, we go to Silas in Staten Island. Silas, you're on with Andy Ross. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'd like to say, as far as American exceptionalism, I thank God and my mother for giving birth to me, the woman
Yes.
who was the greatest person in my life, and I thank God I was born in the USA. And
Amen.
Wow.
as far as the First Amendment, there's a lesson to be learned at the Nova thing where those savages came in and murdered people savagely,
Horrible,
viciously,
yes.
and took hostages.
Horrible.
One thing is, as they kicked in doors, they knew those people didn't have guns to fight back. If they did, most of those terrorists would be laying dead in the street. That's a lesson
Couldn't
that
agree
nobody's
more.
ever.
Right.
They don't bring it up. If those people were able to protect their families, my family is just as important to me as that banker's money. He's got it right on the line there. And
You said it.
as far as rock and roll, all music is legitimate. But to me, my form of music is rock and roll and rhythm and blues. And none of them could have been born anywhere else but in the USA.
Hey, there you go. Now, Silas, that could almost sound like a whole promo for somebody's show, but not mine. But no, seriously, you say it so well. That's a beautiful thing. We're almost up at a break here, but thank you, Silas, in Staten Island. You say it very well. Your response here, we got about a minute or two before we go to the next break as we talk about In the Theater of the Mind.
Well, I appreciate
Please
the call.
continue.
Appreciate the call. It's the caller there. It's interesting that if you look at the crime rates in our country, the highest crime rates are the areas that have the strictest gun control, that offend the Second Amendment the most. And it just shows you that gun control doesn't work. They can't keep guns out of prisons. They can't keep drugs out of prisons. What makes them think that they could keep guns off the streets from criminals that aren't in prison? So no gun control area, like take Chicago, for instance. It's one of the highest crime rated metropolitan areas in the country with the strictest gun control.
Well, we've had John Lott here on programs I've done over the years, and if you're not familiar, ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. John Lott, more guns, less crime is one of his theses. Now, this individual is not just some guy that decided on Monday that he was going to start talking about firearm rights and Constitution. He is a scholar, and obviously he writes, doing extensive research, I should say. And that's an interesting book for people to read. We've had him on many, many times in my previous life. And the interesting story is rights denied is what many states do have today. And what a shame. We don't want to turn it into the Wild West, even though some places in the West here are still kind of wild. But again, it's all about the family. It's all about discipline. It's all about, if you're not acting on behalf of your family, who you're acting on behalf of. And family training and all that. I don't mean to lecture. But ladies and gentlemen, we have more callers like Viviana, line number 1 in Brooklyn. Line number 2, Gray in Delaware. And line 3, Al in Yonkers. We'll do our best to get back with you as we continue on the Dr. Sky Experience Theater of the Mind. And now is a good opportunity to head to the snack bar, but hopefully a healthy treat, and we'll resume right after these announcements.
The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
I'm cocked, locked, and ready to rock, Doc. Hey, working hard, playing hard America. This is your blood brother, Ted Nugent, celebrating the American dream and our Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms. With my blood brother, Steve Cates. Stand up for what you believe in, my friends.
All laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. So said a Supreme Court decision back in 1803 entitled Marbury versus Madison. What the heck happened to that? As we continue at 47 minutes after the hour, our special guest to this very short first hour, and we appreciate Andy Ross, patriot, public speaker, musical talent. Learn so much more about him at andyross.com. Let's continue, Andy, with the callers. Line number one, we have Viviana in Brooklyn. You're on the air, and good morning to you.
Good morning to you. What an honor and a privilege it is to speak to both of you.
Thank you.
My heart leapt when I heard that you were going to have Mr. Ross on because of his great love for America. I am getting ready to go with many, many other Christians and other people that love America to the mall in D.C. Wow. Our precious president, Donald John Trump, has set today as the day for rededicating America back to God. And they realize that because we have gone so far afield, because we have neglected God and we've kept him out of our, we call it 7 mountains of influence: church, government, business, education, arts and entertainment, and the law, that we have, instead of evolved, we've devolved. And we have gone to the point where our nation was so close to being destroyed from within. I believe someone had said in our history that America will not be conquered from without. It will be conquered from within. And because of that, this rededication is such a beautiful symbol to God, and I believe it will bring revival to America.
Well, Viviana, may I give you a long-distance hug through the virtual power of Talk Radio 77?
Thank you.
No, I love what I'm hearing here. But, wow, Andy, I tell you, we get some amazing callers in this particular radio show. And what else can you say? She says a heck of a lot that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, that's this was a blessing just to get to hear, her words. And, we've been through, this country's been through so much. Everybody's been through, we could do a whole program on what you've been through and what I've been through. And I've been able to pray my way out of so many situations. And I've, just when you think and you look around and you think, everything doesn't look good or how it's supposed to be, and you don't know what to do, if you just turn to God and pray and put it in his hands, it just seems to work out better than you ever expected every time. And I just really appreciate your words today.
Thank you, Viviana. God bless you, and God bless America, as they say, but we mean it. And
Amen.
We certainly take it not for granted by any means. Let's continue here. Line number 2, Gray in Delaware. You've been patient. You're on with Andy Ross. How are you doing today?
Gentlemen, this show is not only awesome, it's necessary for 21st century America. I love it. You guys are awesome. But before I get to the meat and potatoes, I just want to say something. We've been talking before about people becoming their own artists and everything. Just keep in mind, if you do create any new writings or anything, make sure you copyright it. Anything else, if you need trademarks, you do it so nobody can steal your ideas. It belongs to you forever. Okay, the Second Amendment. We have to realize that not everybody believes what we believe. And the last caller just said we'll be conquered from within and not from without. We have communist mayors now who are foreign born. We're being conquered from within and from people coming into the country, and not all of them respect the Second Amendment. And people like in New York, anywhere, Boston, anywhere where you have they're not even leftists, they're really communists now, mayors and legislatures and city councils, they are anti-gun. They are pro-criminal. So if this argument that we know we should be able to protect ourselves. I know the stats in New York City in the last 70 years, like a million women, let me finish. A million women have been raped. If they had a nice little Saturday night special at 22 or 32, those numbers would have been much different. It would have been in favor of the ladies.
Right. You're right. They need training, but look, it all starts at the ballot box. Obviously, all politics is local, and I don't want to go thermonuclear on this. That's not my style, but I couldn't agree more with you, Gray. We have to respect what it is, these traditions in America, not by force, but they should be taught, and you're so right about that. Time is of the essence. Gray in Delaware, we appreciate you. Andy, a quick response back, because I'd like to see if we can get some other callers in before the clock runs out.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that that people who are that vote for gun control, that are trying to tear down the Second Amendment, somehow think less guns, less violence. I said this before. They can't keep drugs out of prisons. How do they think they're going to keep guns out of the hands of criminals by taking guns away from law-abiding citizens? All they would do would be to turn it into a black market. They'd be smuggled in. They'd come up from Mexico. They would turn it into a business, just like they've turned drugs and other illegal items into a business. And the only people who would have a hard time buying guns and having guns would be the law-abiding citizens who you want to have the guns. So none of it makes any sense. I follow the money. Where's it coming from? I have a hard time believing that they honestly believe that that's a good idea.
Interesting. Let's close out the hour. Line number 3, Al in Yonkers. You've been patient. Your commentary with our guest, Andy Ross.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sky, and your guest. I just wanted to say in regards to the Second Amendment, I consider myself a pretty conservative person. I'm not really a big gun person. I've shot a gun, a Glock and a 38 years ago. I think what's happened with the Second Amendment and the gun lobby is with the terrible shooting of James Brady, who was, almost, he basically was never the same. And those brave Secret Service agents and Metropolitan Police who protected Ronald Reagan. I think, Sarah Brady really pushed for the Brady Bill. And I do agree with your guest that if you do go into areas like Texas and Florida, the statistics show that those who have handguns and are law-abiding citizens, usually you don't have a big crime spree. It's usually in cities other like New York City. So I do agree that's the truth. Yes. But in regards to AK-47s and all, I do think there should be some kind of some background check, even if it's not too long.
Al, I appreciate your commentary. I don't want to cut our guest off, but I teach this stuff. We teach the development and building of ARs. We teach the building and development and the entire process of how to strip, field strip, and AKs, everything. I could go on for hours, but this is not the format for it. Just that we should at least, and I think in the hour, I think you would agree, Andy, that respect for our traditions, American exceptionalism, and on the local level, talking about getting into the schools with the Pledge of Allegiance and teaching about American exceptionalism and teaching stories about this, and that we are truly a republic, not necessarily a constitution. I mean, a democracy, excuse me for jumping out of line here. Anyway, let's go with one more call. We'll see if we can get them in there because they've been patient. Line number 1, we go to Paul. You've been patient in North Jersey. Thanks for joining us. Your comment.
Well, I wanted to mention that the Pledge of Allegiance was actually written by a group of people that were trying to reform education. And it was written without the line, one nation under God.
Okay.
And then when that line was put in the 1950s is when they stopped wanting to say the Pledge of Allegiance in the schools.
Didn't know that. That's an interesting commentary. Andy, your final comment, and I do appreciate what you're trying to say there, Paul. Always good information from our listeners out there. We wrap it up, and I want to, again, promote your website. And I hope your tour, I hope you get out to the New York area. I hope you get out to Arizona here and all that location, because I think people would want to hear the American Rebel, burning patriotic fuel. Give us your website again, and you get the floor for a couple of minutes.
Well, I've got a great tour schedule. One of the things I'm really excited to do and blessed to play, playing July 3rd, the night of, July 4th weekend, but July 3rd, we're headlining a 250th celebration stage on the battlefield at Gettysburg. And that's just going to have to be one of the highlights of my music career. So looking forward to getting out there, and we're doing quite a few shows out in Pennsylvania. We play a lot of NHR races, NASCAR races. But this, I just wish everybody out there the best. I want everybody to chase their version of the American dream. If your American dream is to be a woodworker and have a great woodworking shop, have a small business you can work with your family, or just do your best at a job that you then have a job that you like and love. I wish everybody their happiness, their version of the American dream. And my advice: put God first. And appreciate being on the show today.
Andy Ross, you say it so well. Appreciate your time. And there's one thing that I want to mention that you didn't mention. You have your own line of custom crafted beer. And boy, do I like beer. And yet, something I got into a 40 pair of pants the other day. I guess I got to do something. I'm embarrassed to admit that to this wide audience. I once was a 38, and I once was a 36. But bring it on. What's the name of the beer? People go to your website.
That's why we make a light beer. We made it for you. American Rebels, America's patriotic brand. And when one of the major beer companies out there kind of showed their colors, we decided to jump in that business, and we created America's patriotic, God-fearing, Constitution-loving, national anthem-singing, stand-your-ground beer. It's called Rebel Light. We're in 18 states. AmericanRebelBeer.com. I appreciate you letting me mention it.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And don't ever sell that car, but if you do, come out to the big Barrett-Jackson auction. I'm sure that car would bring mucho dinero, big bucks, don't you think? There you go. Well, thank you.
Would be a good place to show it off, for sure.
We always go there. We see the most amazing vehicles. But I learned one thing real quick. Never jump up in excitement and say anything loud, because you might become the owner by a fake bid if they don't catch it in time. You disrupt a lot of people. Andy Ross, AndyRoss.com. Thank you so much for being part of the Dr. Sky Experience. Stay tuned. Hour number 2. We continue with the great mysteries of what's going on in the world of ufology. As if you think you've heard everything, stay tuned for a retired United States Navy captain from Naval Intelligence, Doug Cupo. He's going to dissect all these disclosures. Stay tuned, because we all learn something, and that's our goal here on the Dr. Sky Experience, to learn something new each time we listen. And we thank you for being part of our Theater of the Mind. Hour number 2, just around the corner.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
We continue with the Powerhouse Blowtorch Signal here at Talk Radio 77 WABC. Hour number 2 begins in what we call the Theater of the Mind. I want to thank our very special guest as we continue to talk in Hour 1, a never-ending story of American exceptionalism, as you hear proudly on this radio station many times during its 24 hours of broadcast time: truth, justice, and the American way. An interesting phenomenon, no, not just words, but a true form of how this nation was founded and what we believe in, at least many of us. We continue with the Dr. Sky Experience. If you're a first-time listener, thank you for joining us in what we like to call Theater of the Mind, an area for imagination, because we're not staring at a television screen seeing this particular show. That could happen in the future, but for now, a Theater of the Mind. We welcome you with your questions and comments always at 1-800-848-9222. And while you're at it, why not download the WABC app? That would make the listening experience much easier for everyone. And look at all the other benefits that you'll find there. Continuance of learning about how to listen to the podcast, not only of this show, but what about all the other great hosts that you hear here 24/7? Download the WABC app. It's free, and it's definitely something good. I want to thank our helmsman, Bill, and all the guys and gals that are helping make this show what you would expect to hear. My email, in case you have a curiosity question. Many times we get guest suggestions, and many times we, of course, get thank yous, and sometimes we get no thank yous. That email, drsky@wabcradio.com. What's interesting is now we shift gears to a subject that's on the minds of so many people. And if you haven't listened to what's happening in the last week or so about this whole UFO story, the United States military, no, the United States government, more precisely, has said for President Trump that we're going to get to the bottom and offer disclosure on what's happened for 80 years. And that's an interesting subject, and one I think you'll be very much enamored by our special guest. Doug Cupo is a retired U.S. Navy captain from Naval Intelligence, a former senior U.S. Defense Intelligence officer, and interesting senior systems engineer. He has 4 decades of experience in multi-domain intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, it's known as ISR, support to joint U.S. military planning, operations, and assessment, with primary focus on aerospace systems development, engineering, acquisition, and operations. Mr. Cupo has been the Virginia Mutual UFO Network key researcher, lecturer, and disclosure advocate since 2021. We'll have much more on his background, but first, because of a short hour, we welcome Doug Cupo to the conversation with the Dr. Sky Experience. Thank you for being up with us this early morning. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me on again.
Well, I appreciate you. And, the subject is obviously something we want to talk about, the great mysteries that are out there. And I'd like you to take us down the path here because this is interesting. Many of the news reports, not that they're bad, we have to find out what's really behind this. And we're hearing many in the mainstream or legacy media talk about they're going to be revealing what true disclosure is, and if for the government's having these secrets for 80-plus years, we're about to find out the truth. You might say just the opposite. What is the recent disclosures? And let's go into them and define them so the people out there listening can say, wow, I didn't know this. These are all these different names. They have certain numbers and certain assessments from the government. Describe what we're talking about here in the first disclosure.
Sure, exactly. Well, we're dealing first with this new term, a new acronym that the government's come up with called PURSUE, and it stands for Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. And of course, UAP stand for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. And essentially what I'm going to go through with you today in a brief tour is not about, in this hour, wild speculation, but really about what the government is now officially releasing. A large body of unidentified aerial phenomena material. And it's important because it's not just something that's dramatic on its own accord, but because it marks a shift toward transparency and official acknowledgement of persistent unexplained cases. Some of the main points from my analysis that I'd like to share with the audience today is the majority of the items that are in this tranche, if you will, are prosaic, which really means mundane explanations. But there are unresolved ones that I'm going to go through that are exciting due to their mystical nature. And we have these limitations that I'll go through, too, about metadata and sensors, and I'll go through a couple of terms with you so the audience understands what those are about.
Yes, but before you do that, if you don't mind, and it's my fault, not yours, of course, talk a little bit about your career without revealing national security issues. And I'm reading this from the bio that you sent. Your career was built on one thing, separating signal from noise under conditions of deep uncertainty. Now, I'll ask the question, and I may not get an answer, but could it have been something to do with submarines and detecting sonar signals or unidentified signals coming from what we might consider to be man-made submarine craft or submersible objects? Can you respond to that?
Yes, I did support the ASW area, in the specific area of ASW. And,
which is what? Anti-submarine warfare, right?
Anti-submarine warfare. And had quite a career doing that. But also, the biggest part of my career was in the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance field, where I helped design the requirements for sensor systems and platforms for space and airborne systems. So that insight gives me great insight into how these sensor systems and platforms are being used to collect against these phenomena, and so that's a key point.
And we had you on about, maybe a year ago, if I'm almost correct, we don't look the exact week and date, discussing what still, in the minds of many in the New York metropolitan area, that includes Connecticut, let's say, even parts of Massachusetts, deep into Pennsylvania, down into Delaware and D.C., the mystery of these drones that were seen, some of which allegedly were the size of an SUV, and they didn't seem like a hobbyist drone. You would discuss that with us, too. That was fascinating.
Yes, exactly. And that, to me, in my mind, that has not been settled well. Because there not only was, to go back historically, just it started in December of 2024, as you recall. It has not been settled because there was much more than just New Jersey. It was along the eastern seaboard, and it went out through the Midwest, and it was overseas as well. So everybody can't be imagining these things and deluding themselves into thinking that this phenomenon is there when it isn't there. Something was going on, for sure.
Absolutely. And the government release, as you describe it, official title is Pursue 1.0 UAP files. So can you give us a broad stroke of the brush? What's in there in case people are going, what is Doug Cupo talking about? Describe what's in there for people who never heard about it.
Absolutely. That's what I'm going to do next. First of all, the majority of the items that are in here, the numbers that they're giving are 70 to 80% are prosaic and artifacts. And by artifacts, I mean essentially things that have to do with the sensors, peculiarities with them, that the way they operate and the way they receive this information and process it, because it could be distorting what is being collected. But 50 to 25% are legitimately unresolved. And then they figure there's a 5% that are potentially anomalous, that are doing those famous things like Lou Elizondo used to say, instantaneous acceleration, transmedium travel, fast directional changes, and things of that type. So what we have here is, in the cases that are interesting, that I'm going to go through, metallic orbs and spheres and star-like objects that have been detected, I'm going to go through some of those, that have the strongest, legitimately unresolved nature to them. The kinematic claims, and I'm going to give a couple of definitions here as I go through because they're important to understand. I'll go through those before I actually start on the cases. I won't belabor them, but the audience needs to understand some of these definitions, like metadata and kinematics and telemetry.
Yeah, help us.
Yes, I'm going to do that. So the bottom line up front is that this release advances transparency, but it's not the answer to disclosure, as we are thinking about, because there is no smoking gun per se in terms of any non-human technology that's been discovered. Unidentified in this case is not the same as anomalous. The strongest cases really cluster, though, around these recurring orb and geometric objects that have been detected, which is very significant. So when we try to separate signal from noise, and that would be in the multi-sensor area for going against these objects, and the military is obviously the best equipped to do that, the information can't be given to us in totality because they're classified systems. That's one of the key issues here.
So we're not getting any disclosure. You're saying, at least at this part of the interview, that we're getting a bunch of mumbo jumbo, that there's no source identifier which comes out and says disclosure. Yes, this is without a doubt some sort of alien artifact or alien craft. It's just giving us more information of generalities. Is that what I'm basically hearing so far?
Actually, this is one of the first times where they've given some specifics and declassified what the sensors were actually detecting. So the videos are fascinating, and I invite the audience to go look at the site if they need to get it. You just type in pursue.gov, I believe. They can see these videos, and they can see the motion of these objects. And one of them that we're going to go through, I don't want to steal the thunder because it's going to come up in a moment here, is from United States Central Command, the command that's working the Iran Epic Fury conflict right now. So as we go on, Are there any cases that stand out? Yes, but there is no single smoking gun. Everyone is looking. If you probably have heard in the discussions that have been going on all the television and podcasts, where is this reverse engineering program for alien technology? Where are the biologics? These species, these alien species. That's not in here. Do they talk about recovered craft? No, none of that's in here. So
not yet, right? Not yet.
Not yet. That's a very good point, Dr. Sky. Not yet.
Okay.
And we're waiting on that. And there's supposed to be some 49 or 46 videos that Representative Luna from Congress has been following very closely because she's had classified briefings on them, and they're actually going to provide unclassified renditions of these very soon. That's what they're promising. So here's what we have. Where the most compelling material that comes up is in multi-sensor military encounters, and this is fascinating because these are trained observers in the military that are using a combination of radar, electro-optical, infrared sensors. They're correlating that, and they've been involved in restricted airspace incidents at their very classified bases in some cases out west. The Apollo material, I'll talk about that, is historically interesting. I'll tell you a little tidbit on that I briefed on a couple of years ago. They came up here. The interesting thing about the Apollo detections, people say, well, it's less evidentially strong than the modern sensor cases. Well, I would argue that in space, obviously, there are a lot of phenomena that are affecting the acquisition of signals and how you can detect these objects. Because and I'll go through some of those. But the Apollo missions, Apollo 11 and 12, had actual occurrences of UAP following them.
Yeah, and that is interesting, Doug, because we've never heard that. Now, I've met, and maybe you have, so many of these moonwalkers, and we spent time with them in pretty good detail. But I've asked this question. I never had a chance to ask Pete Conrad of Apollo 12 this, but a good friend of ours who's since passed on, like many of the Apollo astronauts, obviously Edgar Mitchell on Apollo 14, we went into that a little bit. And he, I think, this is my opinion, of any of the astronaut corps that might have been so open to these type of phenomenon, I never pursued that. I should have with him, but that's a whole nother story. But if you're just joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience, who are you listening to, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Cupo, that is Doug Cupo, retired United States Navy captain of naval intelligence and a former defense intelligence officer. He spent 4 decades in his, particular area of expertise, which is signal acquisition. But even closer to home, he's the Virginia Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, key researcher and lecturer and a disclosure advocate since 2021. And if you have a question, I want to throw this question out to the audience. Have you, ladies and gentlemen, looked and pursued Pursue 1.0, the program identified as Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, long discussion by direct presidential order as of May 8th, 2026? Your questions come into the theater of the mind at 1-800-848-9222. Please continue, Doug. It's fascinating. It's kind of a lot of stuff to talk about, but please continue on what is in this pursuit.
What we can, because you could go on this for the rest of the week. It's very it was a power-packed file release, I have to say. Quite a bit of data was put out. Some key terms here before we go on, because I'm going to use these terms in a lot of the discussion. Metadata. You hear this term metadata, and in simple terms, metadata is data about the data, but let's talk a little more about it. It's how the data was recorded. It's where and when and by what sensor and under what operational conditions. And examples would include, just like your cell phone or a sophisticated sensor pod on an aircraft, zoom level, sensor type, altitude, geographic coordinates, file history, how the file is progressing as the collection is going, and chain of custody. The next one is very important, kinematics. Kinematics is the study of motion characteristics.
Okay.
And really, this is how we explain the forces causing these impacts on these objects. And the key ones to remember here, and I will tell you, it's very interesting when I came across this. These are exactly the ones that Dr. Avi Loeb said in a Zoom that I attended. He gave a special session to a San Diego MUFON audience that I attended, and they are speed, acceleration, trajectory, directional changes, hovering behavior. That's very interesting, that one, and maneuverability. So that's the kinematics, the movement of these craft. Geometry.
Right, and many defying the laws of physics, which lends to the whole point of saying, wait a minute, if it's not an earthly manufactured technology, where in the hell did this thing come from? But we're slowly, it's like molasses just trying to thaw out. We're not getting, well, the president, of course, I respect him. He's not just going to jump on television or any other source of media and say, you know what, there are aliens, we do have them. We have the bodies, and we're going to do this for the 250th anniversary. We're going to lie one out in a craft on the ellipse right near the White House, and you can get to see it if you call this number right now to get your ticket. That's not happening yet.
Oh, exactly. Well, when you look at this report, the next one that comes up is very important, is understanding the geometry. And going back to our geometry lessons, this is really all about what the shape of an object is, its orientation, its spatial structure. It could be circular, aerodynamic, rotating, and all that. So we need to understand that, because the observer and the sensor platform versus that object are going to have geometry considerations that will be the telltale signs of how that detection is going to occur. If it occurs successfully, they have to resolve that geometry.
But let me stop you for a minute with total respect here. And this is a question that I think many listeners out there may be having. They can ask for themselves in detail at 1-800-848-9222. Then what in this disclosure would give the average person out there who has really no aerodynamic or science background any information that talks or leads toward disclosure? Because you're giving us great information. It's just that so many people out there, no disrespect to them, they may not have this experience where they're looking for this, and obviously it doesn't happen. Yes, these are real. Here's where the craft is, and here's the body.
Right. No, I'll go through it. Let's go through the cases, because I think that's important, because they did give a layman's appreciation in the narratives to these detections. And the first one is the famous Apollo 17. This is actually Apollo 17 triangular lights from 1972. And there is a image that's fascinating where three luminous points are in the lunar sky imagery from the lunar base from Apollo 17. Some people are arguing it could be likely ice particles or lens flares. A lot of experts are challenging that, because there have been challenges before on some of these images where mathematical and geometric analysis has been done, and they're showing clear metallic objects they believe that are moving along.
And not only is that a difficult thing, what about the people who don't ever believe that we went to the moon? I spent a lot of time personally with Gene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt.
Oh, yeah?
And I was never the one, because I never thought of this at the time, to ask both of them. Obviously, Harrison is still alive, God bless him, but Gene has passed on to the infinite. But it's interesting, because many times we could explain it as lens flares from the simplicity side, but who knows? So the government is now saying, wait a minute, we're opening up these Apollo files to add kind of a mystery to the whole thing, and that's what we're trying to resolve.
Right. Well, we have these ones on Apollo. It was Apollo 12 and Apollo 17, and multiple discrete cyan blue contacts clustered together, different morphologies. They had their long elongated structure that's out there in the sky. So it's very, very interesting. One other one that's very fascinating that is actually mentioned in here. And by the way, this is the first time that NASA has come clean on a lot of these. They have not wanted to discuss these. There is a famous Apollo 11 technical crew debriefing that took place in 1969, in July 31st, where all three members discussed an unidentified bright object that they sighted one day out from the moon.
Amazing.
And And Buzz Aldrin said it seemed to have a bit of an L shape to it, like an open briefcase, a suitcase. But the crew basically asked at that time. They said, "Where is the S4B, the S-4B, which is
the booster rocket,
the booster rocket that sent him in?" And they were told it was 6,000 miles to the east. So whatever that object was, it was not that booster.
That's amazing.
That's one example of excellent. I'll go through.
Well, Doug, as the host of the show, I hope you don't mind this, but you're lighting up the phone lines here like a 4th of July firecracker, a bunch of firecrackers here. So in the limited time we have with you, obviously we appreciate it. Let's go to line number 1 and welcome Melvin in the Bronx. Melvin, you're on with former retired United States Navy Captain Doug Cupo, Naval Intelligence. How about that? And thanks for being with us.
All this conversation is about diversion. Charity begins at home. If there's anybody out there who wants to come on down here and communicate, they would have been here a long time ago. Evidently, fine. If we want to go out there, fine, go out there. But all this other thing right here, let's take care of what's going on right here. We got all these people coming to the United States or North America for what? Because of Columbus in 1492, which laid the groundwork for a whole lot of this mess that's going on today. Let's take care of the mess that's going on right here now. Why? If there's anything up there, they do not want to come down. Of course, all the mess that's being created down here by how people refuse to get along with each other. And
hey, boy, you sell it, my friend. You say it very well. Why can't we all just get along, right, Melvin? So why would aliens want to come here if you think, in your opinion, that the place is kind of a mess? But, Melvin, I want Doug to respond here because that's kind of a generic statement that we're both bringing up here. You know, you're exactly right. He's right. Why would you want to come here if this place is a mess? But maybe there's other reasons why alien technology or alien craft want to visit this Earth. Maybe it's minerals. Maybe it's us, you know, like a Twilight Zone episode, to serve man. That's a really weird one, but go ahead, please.
Right. There have been many theories espoused by that, by ufologists like Hal Puthoff and Jacques Vallée as to why alien visitation could be occurring if that in fact is what it is. And you mentioned one of them where they're looking for resources. We don't want the one issue conquest to be a reason, obviously. We have not seen any indication, and nobody who has followed this has studied it, has stated that. I know Stephen Greer indicates that he believes they're all benevolent, these species, as they're being examined. There's no confirmation right now, but clearly there are a number of reasons. Well, some include Dr. Masters' work where they're time travelers, and that's an interesting one.
Right, an interdimensional type situation. That's something that our physics do not understand. But before we go to the rest of the callers, and I'm interrupting you, Doug, and I apologize because it's kind of like a stream of consciousness with my mind right now.
Right.
Your opinion on Dr. Stephen Greer. I thought I watched a video, and again, I'm not saying this with accuracy, not to attack Dr. Stephen Greer, that many of those witnesses that are missing, that there's some sort, and I think this is what he said, so again, don't quote me on this.
Right.
Maybe you have better knowledge, and maybe you disprove what I'm saying. That maybe some of these witnesses that have seen this have all been bumped off by some interagency government hit squad, if that's what he's trying to say. Any response on that, or do I have it totally wrong?
I think that one is very debatable. Because the FBI is looking at it now, and so far, right now, as you know, that list has been growing almost on a weekly basis because people are taking up any anomalous type event that took place with an individual. But clearly, these individuals are in bins, if you will, as to what happened with them. Some had suicide. Some were part of a family murder problem that happened.
It's very, very complicated.
Yeah. And then the ones that are one of the most disturbing ones is the General McCasland, Neil McCasland, who disappeared out west. So he went off the face of the earth. He took off one day with his
literally. Right.
Literally, with his gun.
Doug, we got a break coming up here, and I always apologize to guests and to callers. We have to follow the rules here, and in the radio and television world, obviously we come up to what's called a hard break. But, ladies and gentlemen, we'll do our very best to get you on with your questions and comments about what our special guest, Doug Cupo, was talking about, the latest release from the government on the UFO phenomenon, as they're describing it as a path toward disclosure. Your comments and opinions are very much respected at 1-800-848-9222. And now we take that break, so it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to head to the snack bar from the Theater of the Mind. We'll be right back.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
She can't take any more, Captain. She's gonna blow. You can't mix matter and antimatter cold. You're listening to the Dr. Sky Show.
There is no generally accepted procedure in identifying UFOs. Author Toba Beta, from her book Betelgeuse Incident. 32 minutes after the hour, we are with retired United States Navy Captain of Naval Intelligence, Doug Cupo, sharing with you, the audience, as big audience that this is, some of the disclosures that are coming from the government in this first tranche. Doug, welcome back. You're lighting up the phone lines here, and I do want to get you to explain so many more of the things that we're talking about here.
Sure.
But let's go to line number 3. He's been patient. Let's say good morning to Danny in California on the other side of the nation. Good morning, Danny.
Oh, hi, gentlemen. And it seems to me that, like, Trump is in November is going for the Art Bell vote, you know. I think if you go back in the National Enquirer 40, 50 years, you'll probably get more information on UFOs and space aliens than they're going to release. This is my opinion. I'll throw it right on the table, my cards. Our government has no space alien bodies. They have no spacecraft from any other planet, any other universe. That's all put out there. Is it a distraction? I don't know what it is. There are people fascinated by it, but don't be bamboozled by it. That's why I would tell people. I know in the 1950s they would make like 200-300 science fiction movies. In the 60s came the TV shows, Twilight Zone stuff. Yeah, and that's when you started hearing people talking about they had a couple of drinks, a couple of JDs and Southern Comforts, and they were on a spaceship 20 minutes later. So this is all done nonsense. Maybe Trump's going for the Art Bell thing. Look up 50 years ago in the National Enquirer, get some good articles on spacecraft, but it's all nonsense. It's just
and you won't believe it until you see evidence, right? There's like a lot of people out there. If you could show me a craft and you could show me a body, then, and here's an interesting thing that you could comment on, Doug.
Yeah.
Is there even one, and again, I'm a believer that something's there, so don't think I'm the opposite side. I want disclosure, but that's not important what I say. Is there even any shred of evidence that we have from any of these so-called alien craft encounters? Anything? Metallic substances, pieces of something? Is there anything in your mind that you can share with us? Because Danny in California, obviously entitled to his opinion, might think differently.
Very good point. To my knowledge, no. There was something that had to do with called Art's Parts, which was a supposed sample from a craft, and it was Art Bell that had the radio interview with the individual who claimed to have it. That was only in 2024 analyzed by the Oak Ridge National Lab, and they determined it to be terrestrial based, the material.
Interesting. So, yeah, I think I remember that interview because I was on with Art Bell for many years before it transitioned over to George. But he brought up that is Art. So many very interesting interviews, which I could never laugh at because so many of them, the people sounded, people can sound credible, but the evidence can, continue to pile up. Danny's entitled to his opinion. Let's continue here. We're trying to go through the caller board because that's what we love to do. Hear what the listeners have to say. Line number 2, Rob in New Jersey. You've been patient. You're on with Doug Cupo of MUFON. How you doing? Rob in New Jersey. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can, but barely. Maybe you can speak up a little louder and get your turn.
Okay, sure. A couple of issues. In terms of the Second Amendment, does everybody have the right to have submachine guns or nuclear weapons. And as far as the UFOs go, we have about 125,000 years of humans, but we only have about 10,000 years of history. So it's possible that the various UFOs, they come from different rival earlier human civilizations. And maybe that's what the story is with them, that they may be coming here, and they may not all get along just the way humans have not all got along too well.
Yeah, you brought up some interesting points. I know we covered the Second Amendment in the first hour there, but moving on to this discussion that you're bringing up, I appreciate your call, Rob. Doug, that's interesting what he's talking about in the UFO realm there. I mean, who knows what's going on out there? Your expertise is what we want to hear.
Well, exactly. That goes back to these theories that have been espoused by Jacques Vallée, Hal Puthoff, and others, that there are a host of these species, of these beings, ostensibly, that have been visiting the Earth. They go by the names of the extraterrestrial species, the interdimensionals, the ultra-terrestrials. Those are ones that are here. You probably have seen that in news articles just recently, that they say the aliens have been here. They're not coming. They're here, and that's what these people are referring to. That they could be living in the oceans. Admiral Tim Gallaudet believes that there's something unusual going on with the oceans, with these unidentified submerged objects called USOs. So there's only something on the order of 75 or 80% of the oceans haven't been fully explored. We don't know what's under there.
On a personal note, if you don't mind sharing this with the audience, your background in military naval intelligence, what got you interested in this whole subject? Just tell us, because, not everybody who has your background, and I respect it highly, military and your technology, what got you interested in this? One day you woke up and continue the story.
Yes, I in the recent years, this subject, and it was particularly from the 2017 release of the Navy videos that sparked my interest, where they came out and showed very compelling anomalous aircraft. And there are many interpretations as to what that could actually be. Is it some type of a distortion, a sensor distortion, or these different types of parallax view? One of the things that's necessary is that I'm interested in is studying exactly how the sensor characteristics and performance are being worked for these problems. There are physics and engineering issues that if you don't follow a regime to do that and analyze these craft, you're not going to come up with the right answers as to what they are.
Right.
So that's what got me interested about it. Most recently was the 2017. I had always been interested in sci-fi, with Star Trek and things of that type since I was young. But with the possibilities of alien life and Carl Sagan and all that, he's one of my heroes. With understanding that axiom, extraordinary, evidence requires extraordinary proof, right?
Exactly. So this is fascinating as we continue with Doug Cupo, United States retired Navy captain, naval intelligence, a big member of MUFON in the Virginia area, and part of course, the Virginia Mutual UFO Network, a key researcher, a lecturer, and a disclosure advocate since 2021. We're taking your calls on this. Before we go to the next break, and I want to try to squeeze as many callers in, that's why we do this show. We want to hear what people think, and that's very important to me. But this is interesting. I've always been a believer. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Betty Hill of the Barney and Betty incident. We spent time with her over the course of 3 or 4 years. And I had, a lot of respect for her. Her husband passed, of course. I never met him. And also Travis Walton here, like where we have a place up in the mountains here in Arizona, where, of course, he lives up in the Heber area. And his experience is like off the charts. So something's going on out there. I mean, for anybody that thinks this is total nonsense, your opinion on this. I mean, what do you want to hear? I mean, you talk about the MUFON group. What do you want to hear from this government in short order? Just tell us, and not sound like you're doing the speech in front of the White House.
No,
what do you want
exactly. I think what I'd like to see is the released information on the truly anomalous performance and characteristics that they're holding for some of these craft, because they clearly, when they say, I think it's a big step that they're doing a release of things like the Dugway Proving Ground one,
correct,
where helicopters were chasing this fiery orb, and we had multiple witnesses. The crew of the helicopter, the ground people saw it, and they obviously have detection information from the sensors. So, there are many things that could be causing flares and fiery orbs and things of that type. They could be atmospheric. They could be reflections of different types of things in the atmosphere. But one thing is certain: if they have this hard evidence as to what these anomalous craft are doing, and they are in fact moving at right angles, like people have indicated. There was one in Tajikistan where United Pan Am pilots that that was a famous one in '94. They basically said when they did their debrief, they said this was an ET event that we experienced with this craft that was trailing us and following us.
And
So,
Doug, going closer to home here, when Representative Burchett went into the closed, skiff, as they talked about, after we had the experience of David Grush in his 2023 testimony.
Right.
And I think he said something to the effect, again, not an exact quote, boy, you probably don't want to know what we heard in there. But, wow, if that's some sort of a threat to this world, well, of course they're not going to tell us. But you heard something similar, too, didn't you, about what his response was in somewhat like the words I used. But you don't really want to know what the hell we heard back
sleeping at night. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's what he said. I'm interested in more details on that. One of the things that is frustrating about this whole affair is they can't fully disclose what they're getting briefed on, and that will lead to speculation, and theories and conspiracies and all of this sort of stuff.
Who knows? Maybe there's reverse engineering of these craft as alleged. I mean, we don't have time. I know this is very embarrassing to you and to myself and the audience. We were going to get into a conversation about David Grush, one of the key whistleblowers, and also the story of Robert Lazar. Maybe we'll tackle that when we come back from the break here in about another minute. But it's fascinating. We haven't forgotten you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're on the line, we'll do our very best to get you on the air to express your opinions. And I think we'll ask it very simply to the audience. Do you really believe that there'll ever be disclosure on these subjects? And then maybe the answer is, well, no, of course not. The government's not going to tell us the things that we don't need to know, because who knows what that could do? Could it destabilize, the future of energy markets in the world? Could it destabilize people from religious beliefs? Could it cause some sort of a ripple in our education system? Who knows? But I would be open as a calm person to want to know, just like you, the mysteries of the universe we're talking about here. And that we hope everybody can learn something from each time we bring a special guest on here on the Dr. Sky Experience. We'll be right back with our MUFON friend, Doug Cupo, sharing with us some of the government revelations, fact or fiction. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Morris Jepson. I'm an 85-year-old veteran of World War II, and my role was weapon test officer on board the Enola Gay that flew the first atomic bomb to Hiroshima. You're listening to the Dr. Sky Show.
As we continue here at 46 minutes after the hour, a great number of phone calls, and we respect the callers. Our special guest, if you're just tuning in, retired United States Navy Captain of Naval Intelligence, Doug Cupo with MUFON in Virginia. Let's go to line number 4. Tom in New Jersey, you're on the air. What say you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I had this question I always wondered about. It's a hypothetical. It probably could never happen, but I was wondering if I can get an answer. Okay, so this is the question. Somebody locates, finds a location on the planet Earth, and take a rocket. Like I said, again, hypothetical. Probably never happened, cost too much money. So you take a rocket and you just shoot it up, and you just keep going up, and you just keep going straight up, and you don't stop. My question is on that, what, in your professional opinion, do you think that you would find? It's kind of a childish question, but it was always in my mind. I always wondered.
No, Tom, you bring up a good point about celestial mechanics. I'm going to refer that over to you, Doug, because it's interesting, and then I'll give a little response back. But you have the floor on that. I think it's a very interesting question from Tom.
Well, for sure, it's going to be reliant on the propulsion of that craft, that rocket. And if you look at how we are traveling right now for interstellar travel, we have the experiences of all of the 1960s era leading up to Apollo, the Gemini craft, and everything, and we have carbon-based rockets. So we are limited in propulsion with light years of travel as a challenge to get out there into deep space. So we don't. The orbital mechanics is a big issue, but the propulsion mechanisms that we have today, the systems for engineering all these rockets, they're constantly under examination, and we have not found an alternative that can do anything close to speed of light.
Sure. And you said it so well, Doug, that the propulsion, Tom, of the rocket that you have, it wouldn't last forever, even if it were nuclear, if you look at the broad base of space. Right. But where would it go? That's the question. So what would happen? Let's say you took off from the Earth's equator, which has the fastest, orbital velocity. That's why they launched the James Webb Telescope from the equator, because it was so big, and they wanted to get the Earth's 1,000 miles an hour spin at the equator to boost it quicker because it's heavier. But without confusing it, Tom, you just go out into space, but there would be a trajectory, but that would have to be based on, as you calculate beyond that, even in space when the rocket motor would stop, it would still be moving through space. Who knows exactly where, but there would be a point if you could calculate that. And here's a little sidelight, both Tom and Doug. Nuclear tests that were done underground. Here's the strangest thing you probably ever heard. Maybe you know this, Doug. One of the underground tests, they had a cap on top of it, very heavy, like a hubcap on top to protect the explosive device down below. What happened was that big 1,000+ pound hubcap, the cover, was actually blasted out into space at velocities that were that of escape velocity. So can you imagine, Tom? You'd have a big giant cover, like a manhole cover, bigger than that, blasted out into space from a nuclear bomb underground. We have no idea where that went. Pretty crazy stuff, don't you guys think? Let's continue with the callers. Line number 1, Robert, a regular caller to our show in Philadelphia. Good morning, Robert. Thanks for being up.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Sky, and thank you to your guest. My daughter's currently an officer in the Navy in the same field you are in, so it's good to hear from somebody that I know has to be intelligent.
Awesome.
But I was calling because it's kind of a speculation, but a point. When I was referring to this before about the Canadian Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, referring to 3 different species or 3 different civilizations. And speculation based on what I know about folk history and all might say, well, one came from the Sirius and one came from Orion's Belt Mintaka and maybe come from Cygnus or the Pleiades. But what occurs to me is that all of these are within our little spur here between the 2 arms of the galaxy, an insignificant little part of the galaxy. And if you're talking about 3 and an emerging 4th civilization, meaning us, in this little part of the galaxy, and you can extrapolate that out, there's probably more civilizations out there than even I thought was possible. Do you know what I mean?
Right. That's a big exponential number. You're right, Robert. If the sun-like stars are like ours, or stars like sun, and they now know exoplanets, wouldn't you think, Mr. Cupo, that there'd probably life of some sort out there? Whether they can travel here, that's another question.
Absolutely. The discovery of the exoplanets clearly indicates that the enormity of the universe and the billions upon billions of stars and these now planets that are out there. And one of the things that comes to mind also is this march of civilizations that occurs with technology. I'm referring to the ones that have, like we do, a solar system and a galaxy, we have yet to master the power of our own sun in our galaxy. And then you've got issues of moving to adjacent galaxies and mastering the power of the stars that are in there, and so on.
Well, thank you. I mean, I hate to cut you guys short. Robert, always a pleasure to hear you with your questions, always insightful. But here's something interesting. The owner-operator, John Katzimatidis, sent me an article from the New York Post here, which needs to be analyzed in its entirety. Apparently, the article talks about government agencies with great intellectual prowess, like Dr. Hal Puthoff, have identified that there are 4 different types of species out there. They're the grays, they're small, the Nordics are tall and blonde, the reptilians, lizard-like, and I never heard of this one, insectoids that look like mantis, like creatures like a praying mantis triangular head. It sounds pretty bizarre, but who knows, right, Doug?
Right.
This is incredible.
Yeah, my head hurts when I think about that. I have that, I'd love to know. I'd love to sit with him and discuss how he's acquired that knowledge.
And that's what maybe Mr. or Congressman Burchett was told in the SCIF meeting. We go to our last caller of the hour, trying to be respectful to the callers. Line number 2, Joe, you've been patient in California. What say you on this very subject?
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. I just have a quick question. I'll keep it short and sweet. What is your opinion about the story in which Jackie Gleason supposedly drove President Nixon to Area 51? I remember hearing that story in the Art Bell show many, many years ago.
Yes.
And I was just wondering what you guys thought about that.
Joe, I thought it was a delivery of the president and Jackie Gleason to a place in Florida. So go ahead. Go ahead on this one, Doug.
Yeah, I believe that's what it was. It's from his wife, Jackie Gleason's wife. He spoke to her about it, and he was pale-faced when he got home, and he was startled by what he saw. And apparently it was some type of, if this is an early rendition of the alien craft recovered and biologics that we talk about today, it would be interesting if that evidentiary basis could be established.
Absolutely. Doug, how do people get in touch with you? Is there a simple way if they'd like to respond to you or ask questions? What do they do?
Yeah, you can use an email. You can reach me by email. You want me to give it?
Please do, and give it twice. Sure. Go ahead, sir.
DCUPO 72180 at AOL.com. And that's DCUPO 72180 at AOL.com.
AOL, that's amazing. I still have one of those accounts somewhere in cyberspace. That's cool. It was one of the originals. Exactly. Okay, you got the floor. We only have a couple of minutes here, but I know we really didn't do, and I'm not knocking you, certainly the justice to do on this subject would take, as you said correctly, hours and hours and hours. We got a couple of minutes, maybe 2. Give us a summation and what you believe is happening and what's really going on behind the scenes here.
Sure. We're experiencing the first real transparency in the government on this UAP issue with this large tranche of documents that have been released. I've been following them closely since the 2017 timeframe, these releases. And those were actually, the 2017 Navy videos were actually leaks. But in short, what has happened is we don't have disclosure yet we've got the beginnings of transparency. And then we also have this call for greater data, because the data is incomplete that's associated with these cases. And while they're very exciting, if that data is being held for a reason, obviously national security, protecting sensor platform capabilities, that's one thing. But can it be, and this is what came out recently, I recently attended a briefing by the former director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, Sean Kirkpatrick, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. And he basically said it's all about the data and getting the hard evidence. And he was pushing very hard for that. Unfortunately, with a lot of these sightings, especially telephone videos where the images are compressed, you don't get much. You can't get the inside metadata and the raw information that you need to do refined analysis on the geometry of what that is. With the parallax view. Parallax is something where the observer and the object are moving relative to each other, and you could be changing the whole perspective as to what you're acquiring with your collection system. So more to come. The big ones I'm waiting for are these large tranche of 50 videos, almost 50 videos that Representative Luna says are very compelling, and we need to see, and they need to be released to the citizen scientists in America, and let them do it. Let them take a look at this.
A bright star in the heavens with your information here, and I appreciate you. We'll have you back, and contact me, of course, when there's something late-breaking so we can get this on the air. We want here on WABC to be the first to be able to give this information out with your credibility and, of course, with your research. Thank you for being part of the show. And I want to say a lot of people are saying the Dr. Sky experience is an antidote to the negative news fatigue. So if you believe that, we appreciate you. And also our helmsman, Bill and company, that makes sure that you can hear this powerhouse signal as clear and as regular. And we hope you'll join us again. Stay tuned as we pass the torch of conversation over to Another Side of Midnight with Lionel as he moves forward to the early morning hours here on your Sunday morning, here on Talk Radio 77, WABC. Clear skies and obviously good health. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being part of the Dr. Sky experience, our version of what we call Theater of the Mind. See you next week.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
This is Another Side of Midnight, and I'm Lionel. And this story, I trust will fascinate you to no end. What does that mean, to no end? I don't know. Well, listen carefully, my friends. Listen very, very carefully. You know, the Bronze Age was built on copper and tin. The Industrial Revolution ran on coal and steel. The 20th century bowed before oil. But the 21st century belongs, I should say, to semiconductors. Tiny silicon chips hidden inside everything from smartphones and fighter jets to AI servers and electric vehicles. Civilization now runs not just on food, water, and etc., but transistors smaller than bacteria. Now, a semiconductor is simply and essentially sand refined into technological royalty. Silicon occupies a strange middle ground between conductors and insulators, allowing engineers to control the flow of electricity with astonishing precision. Billions of microscopic transistors are etched into chips no larger than a fingernail, creating the digital brains powering modern civilization. Today's most advanced chips operate at scales measured in nanometers, so tiny that even a speck of dust can destroy millions of dollars in manufacturing. These chips do different jobs. CPUs handle logic. GPUs dominate artificial intelligence, while memory chips quietly store humanity's endless stream of messages and videos and midnight internet confessions. AI chips, however, now sit atop the semiconductor hierarchy, devouring electricity and computing power with astonishing appetite as companies race to dominate machine learning.
Just give me